Welcome to the Airbnb Roadmap, the podcast designed to navigate you through the entire journey of short-term rental success. Whether you're just starting out or ready to take your hosting game to the next level. My husband and I became super hosts within just months of launching our first Airbnb and have proudly kept that title ever since. With over 350 reviews and an overall 4.95 star rating, we picked up a hack or two I'm excited to share with you. In each episode, I break down the strategies, insights, and industry secrets that set profitable short-term rentals apart. From choosing the right property, understanding local regulations, and obtaining your listing to go beyond just the basics. I'm here to share everything you need to succeed. So if you're ready to map out your path to Airbnb success and unlock the full potential of short-term rentals, join me on the Airbnb Roadmap. Your journey starts here. Hey, I'm Brittany Wenninger, and welcome to another episode of the Airbnb Roadmap. First and foremost, I want to just thank everyone that has reached out to me on Instagram and said that they listened to the podcast because truthfully, I don't know who's listening to this and who's not listening. And this means so much whenever people reach out saying that they're listening and that the information I'm giving you is actually helpful. And that just kind of drives me to keep on doing these episodes, keep the Airbnb roadmap alive, because it's people like you that reach out and kind of give me that sense of, accomplishment that what I'm doing is actually mattering. So if you actually want to be on the podcast, because this podcast is all about first-time investors and, getting your very first Airbnb short-term rental. And it's so nice to hear from people that are actually doing what you want to do. So if you want to be on the podcast, reach out. I will prioritize the people that are taking my course first, just because they invested in me. So I would like to invest in them as well. So again, if you want to be on the podcast, please reach out, but I am going to be prioritizing the people that are taking the course. And if you, have no idea what I'm talking about when I say the course, it's the Airbnb Acceleration course. It's less than $500 and you learn every single thing that you would have learned in a $8,000 course. The reason why I put it so cheap is because I don't believe in price gouging education. You need that money to invest in your first Airbnb. And if you spend it all on a course, then that's going to make it a lot more challenging. So that is what the course is all about. There is a promo code in the show notes for my listeners, $50 off. And yeah, go take it. And then you can hop on the podcast. But okay, let's actually get into the episode. This episode is all about actually buying an existing Airbnb. I know it's one of those things that could be very intriguing. Today, we're diving into what you really need to know if you're thinking about buying an existing Airbnb. Because while it seems like a shortcut to short-term rental success, it comes with some curveballs that no one actually talks about, which I think is quite ridiculous. And I wonder if they're not talking about because they just simply don't know. So let's just start with this. Why do people even sell their short-term rentals in the first place? Because understanding that reason can give you a major insight into whether it's a good buy or a bad buy / red flag. Sometimes it's a life change. So new baby, divorce, job relocation, or just simply burnout. Other times, maybe just the property's just underperforming. Maybe the area is saturated. Maybe it wasn't managed well, or they overpriced it and struggled with occupancy. Some sellers are accidental hosts who never really wanted to be in the game long term. And that is very common, kind of like Ashley Lang, but she actually made an empire out of her accidental hosting. So that's kind of a different story. But in today's market, we're seeing people cash out while they're ahead, especially if their property appreciated fast. So before you jump in, just ask, was it profitable? What kind of guests did they attract? Why are they walking away now? I personally sell a lot of short-term rentals in the Wisconsin area. And I would say that about 75% of the short-term rentals that I sell are actually because the host just does not want to host anymore, and it's not making as much money as they would like. Not that they aren't profiting, they're just not making as much money as they want. So that's about 75% of my clients. And the other 25%, it's because they truthfully just don't have really time to manage it. And yes, they can get a property manager, but most of the time they just want to take that money and invest it in their personal house. Now, the folks that are just not making enough money and want to sell their property, it's because, well, sometimes they just don't have good photos. Sometimes their communication is not that well. And you can see it in the Airbnb listing. Sometimes they just don't want to deal with the guests. And again, that shows. So just because they're not making as much money as they thought that they would for the property does not mean that you can't swoop in and change the story for that property. So let's just say that you are interested in purchasing a existing short-term rental. Here's the kicker that most buyers don't know. Airbnb listings cannot be transferred. I will repeat that. Airbnb listings cannot be transferred. That means even if the property has hundreds of 5-star reviews, you don't get to keep them. The seller has to either cancel or ask all future guests to cancel and then completely delete the listing. So when that happens, it's very important for the seller to know what their end game is. Is their end game to continue on with Airbnb, or are they just completely cutting ties with that whole industry? The reason why that question is so important is because if you just completely cut ties with Airbnb, you don't want to invest in Airbnb anymore whatsoever, then you could reach out to those future guests and say, hey, I'm selling. I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to cancel this reservation. And then you can go ahead and cancel. But if you are still wanting to invest in Airbnb or kind of see yourself still investing in the future, ask the guests to cancel. And when I say ask, it's more like, hey, I'm selling. You're going to have to cancel type of thing. Because if you do it as the host, then your profile will get marked up like crazy. You probably won't be able to have a account anymore with Airbnb. Doesn't mean that, you can make another account with another email, but it's just, if you have the credibility on your existing one, might as well keep it going. But if you, again, want to keep on going with the industry, ask the guest to cancel. That way your profile doesn't get marked up. So then you may be asking the question, what happens to all of these guests that just canceled? Well, you could say, hey, it's actually going to be under new management, and you can rebook with the new owner, hoping that the new owner would be okay with honoring the new prices. So you can say, hey, rebook with this owner, and then all is good. But there is another kicker to this. I know, kicker on kicker, is that if you're a buyer, then you would actually have to recreate the listing from scratch underneath your own account. So you're essentially just buying the property, not the Airbnb business attached to it. That's the thing that a lot of people don't realize. Because you are buying an Airbnb does not mean that you are actually buying the business. You are just buying the property. You have to start the business from scratch all over again. Now, let's just go back to honoring the price again. If the seller had guests on the calendar already and you plan to honor those bookings, which I highly recommend, you'll need to reach out to each guest directly and rebook them underneath your new listing. And you'll want to honor their original rate, even if it's way underpriced. I would still honor the rate because nothing tanks your reviews faster than price bait and switch, meaning that you're saying, hey, I know that you want this booking, let's price gouge you. Please, please do not do that. And then at this point, you can also add your own personal welcome note or bonus amenity to have a great first impression. Because just remember way back when, I have mentioned that the first impression is very important because you don't have that many reviews for that listing and every review counts. Now, I know that information that I just provided you is a huge kicker and you're probably like, oh my gosh, I had no idea about that. But let me just add another kicker to that kicker. Are you knee-deep in renovations for your Airbnb and need a boost to keep you going? Look no further. Aloha has you covered with a clean, delicious protein bar that fuels your day without weighing you down. My husband and I are huge fans. Aloha protein bars are our daily go-to, especially when we're busy with projects. Unlike those protein bars that are literally just like candy bars that leave you feeling sluggish, Aloha plant-based protein bars are made from simple organic ingredients you can trust. Each bar tastes incredible and keeps us energized and ready to tackle whatever the day throws at us, renovations included. And guess what? You can get 20% off your first purchase with the code the Airbnb Roadmap. That's 20% off feeling great and eating clean with Aloha protein bars. Head over to aloha.com and use the code the Airbnb Roadmap today. These links are also in the show notes, so make sure to click on that and get your protein bars. And I'm just going to call that the double whammy kicker. But anyways, in the state of Wisconsin, you need license for all of your Airbnbs. In other states, that might not be the case, but this one is in the state of Wisconsin. You can't legally operate until your short-term rental license is approved, and this can take at least a month or maybe even more. So what this means is that, yes, you just closed on your very first short-term rental that was already existing. Now the guest had to cancel, they need to rebook with you. But you cannot get the listing on Airbnb until your license gets approved. And once again, it could take at least a month. So not only did you just close on the property, you do want to get up and running right away, but you might not be able to. So those people that, let's say, it closed on the 15th and someone's staying at the property on the 17th, they actually have to officially cancel and probably not be able to rebook because you don't have the license to do so. That is the double whammy kicker, is that you need to get the license and that might take a little bit, and all those bookings that happen between closing and the new launch won't be able to actually rebook. So I know that, when you look online and it says existing short-term rental or existing Airbnb, it's really easy to get, the starry-eyed about buying a ready-to-go Airbnb/property. But don't skip the due diligence. Ask for the past 12 months of financials. Look at their guest reviews to see what people really think about the property. Walk the neighborhood and get a feel for who's around, because maybe the guests were great, but the neighbors weren't. And if the seller is vague about the reason for selling, that's worth pressing on. This is a business, not just a cute furnished house. Another thing to look out for is that, yes, it could be an existing Airbnb, but what are the rules and regulations? Some Airbnbs are grandfathered in, meaning that when they bought the property and operated it as an Airbnb, the rules and regulations really were not strict whatsoever. But over time, they did get more strict and your property was grandfathered in. Now, when you sell your property or when you buy an existing Airbnb, that is not transferable as well. So you have to obey by the new rules and regulations that the township has for all short-term rentals that are coming into the town. So yes, it might be an existing Airbnb right now, but when you purchase it, you won't be able to operate it as an Airbnb if the rules and regulations are strict. There's a township in Wisconsin that I just feel bad because I get so many people sending me the properties in this township because they see gorgeous cabins, the up north look, and, for not that expensive. And they're like, Britt, this is the one. And unfortunately, the municipality has the township name and it's not the one, because what that township did is they had a lot of Airbnbs created in the town and they were doing well, which is great. But the township did make the rules and regulations a little bit more strict. And these people are still trying to sell it as a existing Airbnb. And if you purchase it, you won't actually, well, you can make it Airbnb, but the rules and regulations are literally 5-night minimum for a max of 180 days, which we all know is not the best terms for Airbnb because 5 nights is a lot. So, can you still make it Airbnb? Yes, just not, exactly what you want. And I think that this township is now kind of seeing the effect that they had when they made the rules and regulations a little bit strict, because now these sellers are having a hard time selling their properties because they think that they can still sell it as an existing Airbnb, and that's just not correct. Also, those listing agents are trying to bamboozle people, which is also not cool. And in the listing description, they were saying existing Airbnb, good cash flow, blah, blah, blah. Well, the cash flow could be good. It is an existing Airbnb. But if you are a savvy investor or if you have a great short-term rental agent, then they will know that you can't make it into an Airbnb once you purchase it. And if your agent's not that good, that could hurt your wallet so bad. So let's just kind of wrap this up. Buying an existing short-term rental can be an awesome move. Don't get me wrong. It saves you the setup time. You might score some awesome furniture in the deal, and there's a chance to keep momentum going. But it's not a turnkey business. You still have to start from scratch in many ways, like the license and potentially the furniture, the design, if it just wasn't there. Overall, do it right. Be smart about your timeline, and don't be afraid to ask the tough questions before making the leap. Because if it's an existing Airbnb, I'm sure they have some numbers, and it's just a simple question of, hey, can I have your P&L? Or, hey, what was the revenue? And they should be able to provide that for you. But that is all I have with this topic. I know it was kind of a shorter episode, but at least you now know that the existing Airbnbs are really nice to see, but also come with some baggage. So I will see you next time on the next episode of the Airbnb Roadmap Podcast. Thanks for joining me on the Airbnb Roadmap. If you're loving these episodes and want to keep the conversation going, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with someone who's ready to dive into the world of short-term rentals. Got a question or topic you would love to hear about? Reach out. This podcast is all about learning and growing together. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram, the Airbnb Roadmap Podcast, for more tips, tricks, and behind-the-scene insights. Until next time, here's to turning your short-term rental dreams into thriving realities. I'll see you back here soon.